Welcome back. You're watching Mario Miles, and you might remember back in 2018, if you've been a subscriber and a viewer since then, that I did a complete PC upgrade from the Intel i7 2600K to the Ryzen 1800x. And that gave me about a 3 times performance improvement for rendering 1080p videos. I'll put here some of the footage that I did from that playlist, and if you haven't seen it, I'll also put a link to the playlist of me building that entire computer and benchmarking it in the description below. So why are we upgrading today? Well, since 2018 on this channel we went ahead and purchased the DJI Mavic Air. Now, I record video on here between 2.7K and 4K, and I render it all out in 4K for you on YouTube. So the challenge for the computer has significantly increased from rendering 1080p videos to 4K videos. It's 4 times as much pixels, 4 times as much content to render, and I have noticed that my rendering times have increased again. So I'm looking to try and cut that down, because if you appreciate that if a 20-minute video takes an hour to render, and there's a problem with that render, then that can be time consuming, that can delay a video coming out, and I just might not have time to get the video out in time. So I want to do the upgrade. I saw the Ryzen 9 3900X on Amazon for £420, and during this time of lockdown, and I wanted to be more creative and work through a lot of the drone video that we already had, I thought, why not, let's go ahead and purchase that. So this is the Ryzen 9 3900X. It comes in a box with its own thermal cooler, which I'm not going to use, so if you want it, please subscribe and leave me a comment down below, and maybe I'll send it to you. The cooler does have RGB on it, so that might be appealing to some gamers out there. What I'm interested in is the CPU in the box. Because I have a liquid-cooled system, I'm going to just replace the CPU I have, which is the Ryzen 1800x, with this Ryzen 9 3900X, and put it in the same cooling solution. So if you want the RGB cooler, let me know in the comments down below. So it's worth noting that I am just doing a processor swap out, and I'm keeping my MSI X370 Gaming Plus motherboard. The only downside to doing that is that I won't have PCIe 4.0 support. However, after doing some research, it turns out that there isn't even a graphics card or anything out there right now that would take full advantage of that. So even if I upgraded my graphics card from the current NVIDIA 980 Ti to the NVIDIA 2080 Ti, I still wouldn't be taking full advantage of the PCIe 4.0 solution, so I don't need it. I'm saving myself the pennies because I'll still get the performance improvement I need from the CPU without spending money on a motherboard for a redundant feature that I can't use right now. In order to make this motherboard compatible with the 3rd generation Ryzen processors, I have had to do a BIOS update. That's quite easy to do. You just download the BIOS from the website and run it through the BIOS updater. Okay, so now you know why I'm doing this, how much I've spent on it, and what I'm looking to get out of it. As I've sort of mentioned, it's about a 30% performance improvement I'm expecting to see. So if I have a 5-minute video rendering at 12-13 minutes, I'd like that to come down to below 10 minutes. Let's say 9 minutes is the target for that video. So I will show you some benchmarking at the end of this video between the 4K video that I'm rendering as my test, which is at Black Nest Castle. It's a roughly 5-minute video. Rendering on the 1800X took about 12.5-13 minutes, and I will show you how long it takes on the 3900X, which I'm hoping will be about 8-9 minutes. Okay, let's now jump into doing the brain surgery on the computer itself. Okay, so here we are in the land of no green screen. Let's go ahead and open the box and get started. Okay, so let's open the box. So there we have it. That's the thing we're all talking about today. £420 just for that. It's heavy. Other things in here, as I said, is the AMD cooler. Which I don't want, and I'm not going to be using. But that's what that looks like. Interesting, it already has paste applied to it. So I am going to try and do this CPU change with the liquid still in my cooling loop. I'm not going to drain the loop to take it apart, but before you decide to do this, one thing I recommend you do is look at your bank balance and ask yourself, do I have the money to replace every part of my computer if this goes wrong, if I get a leak? If the answer is no, don't do this. Drain your loop first, then put the CPU in, and then refill the loop. But I'm trying to just make sure that there's less air holes in my system. So, as I say, don't try this at home, I'm just being lazy. Okay, so the PC is now on its side, and I'm just checking this reservoir is dry, which it is, which is nice, and it's not leaking from the top, which is also nice. Okay, so we're going to take these pressure screws off. One, two, three, and sprung up, and four. Collect the 4 springs. And lift it off. So that's how my thermal coolant looked after 2 years. Not bad. I'm aware I am introducing air to the system, by the way, but it can't be helped. It's just something I'm going to have to deal with. To clean this, because we're going to want to clean the copper connector before we apply new thermal paste onto the new processor, you need to use some alcohol for that. I personally like Strongbow dark fruits for this job. Do not use drinking alcohol for this. You do want proper cleaning fluid or alcohol, isopropyl alcohol swabs. Okay, so next we take the old processor out. If you watched my previous video on how to install a processor from AMD, it's the exact opposite way. So we just flip this out and up, and moves a little bit to the left. Grab the processor and lift it out gently. So again, this is my old 1800X coming out of the system. I've lost the new one. So we'll be replacing this with this. So let's go ahead now and clean this. So with my isopropyl alcohol wipe, not with my cider. Give it a good clean. There we go. So there's nothing left on it. And also check the socket, because if you have put too much thermal paste on in the last time, thermal paste can overspill onto the socket, and you're going to want to make sure that you have cleaned off that as well. But I didn't put too much on, so I've done a pretty good job. You also want to do the same to clean off all of the gunk from the old processor. So again, holding it from the side because you don't want to touch the pins too much, and give it a general clean down with another isopropyl alcohol wipe. This will be going to a good home, I would hope. Again, if you want it, subscribe and tell me down in the comments why having this processor would be beneficial to you. This is the 1800X, and I might just send it to you. It's a nice, clean Ryzen 7 1800X. Okay, so now it's time to install the shiny new 3900X in its place. If you watched my previous video on how to do this, you will know that on all processors there's a little corner marked. It's a little gold bit, and that points to the corner mark on the socket. So pick up the processor, like so, and it goes into the socket like that. Gently put it in, make sure it's sitting nicely, and then press down and clip it in. Okay, next we do thermal compound. So if you watch my last video, you know that I like to do the P method. So I put a P-sized bit of compound in the middle. Again, this is the Arctic MX4 thermal compound. I believe this is the 2019 edition. Don't know what that means. Anyway. So we squeeze out a small P amount, about that. It's probably perfect. Always remember to seal your thermal compound afterwards, because it's not cheap. And now we reverse the process of putting the cooler back on. Okay, so the PC is now back together and we're about to try the first power on of it with the new AMD Ryzen 9 3900X processor. What I would expect to see on a first boot with a new AMD processor is that it will take a bit longer than normal for the screens to come on, and then it should pop up and boot as normal. What I will do is I will stop it and go into the BIOS just to check that it's recognising the processor properly, then we'll do a restart and we'll let it boot into Windows. So, for luck, let's open that alcohol we spoke about earlier. Cheers! And let's press the button and see what happens. Good sign, so I've just heard the fan's power go down, which means it passed the post. Now we're seeing it come up on the screen. So the computer has recognised that there's been a change, and it's asking me to confirm that things are okay. So it's saying that I have a 3900X processor, it's saying I've got my 32 gig of RAM, it's saying it's going to run at 2400. I will bring that back up to 2933, possibly even 3200 if this processor will support it. I know that the 1800X only supported 2933, which I'd be happy with, but if I can get it to 3200 then let's go ahead and try that as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and look in advanced and overclocking, XMP, I'm going to enable on the RAM. Adjusted DRAM frequency is now put up to 3200, so let's see if that sits, if that takes, that's stable. And let's just boot the system with those settings and see what happens. So the first comparison benchmark I did was to render a 5-minute and 18-second rough cut of the Black Nest Castle video from last week. As you can see, the 3900X has a 33.6% performance improvement in terms of time to render this video. And I wanted to do this comparison first because it sets a more realistic expectation for you as the potential consumer as to what you're going to see from a productivity workflow. Next we see the Cinebench comparison between the two processors, and you can see that the 3900X has a 94.8% improvement in the score compared to the 1800X. Now if I had just done the Cinebench comparison, I would be setting unrealistic expectations for you as the potential consumer that you're going to get that kind of performance improvement in a real productivity workflow, which you're not going to get. The 33% improvement is realistic and for me is really invaluable. As I've mentioned previously, I quite often do rough renders and rough cuts to see how things look and to make sure that my video is going to look the way I want it to before doing the full final render. And saving 1/3 of the time every time I do that is going to be invaluable to me. So now that I did these two benchmarks, I thought, how far can I push this processor? So I went in to do some overclocks. And finally, after some testing and some crashing, I managed to get a stable overclock at 4.3 GHz across all cores, running 1.375 volts across all cores. And here you can see the results when I reran those benchmarks. So I managed to save another 30 seconds on the Black Nest Castle rough render, and I managed to get a considerably better score from Cinebench. Okay, so let's finish where we began, back here in green screen land. I wanted to give you my final thoughts on my first impressions of the AMD Ryzen 1800x processor. So for me, the most immediate thing that you'll notice when installing the new processor is the quality of life improvements if you have a high productivity workflow. So for example, if you're a YouTuber or you do video editing, or maybe if you do streaming, you might notice that you can do a lot more with this processor at the same time. The biggest thing that I noticed, other than the improved rendering speed, was actually timeline manipulation. I can do that a lot faster now with the higher quality content. As I said, I film my drone content at 2.7K or 4K, and normally I have to always optimize the media before I can play with it. And now I seem to be able to scrub back and forth with relative ease actually. So for the first rough cuts, I don't have to do the optimized media anymore. If you're interested in optimized media, what it is and how I manage content and storage within my YouTube productivity workflow, I'm going to be doing some videos on those over the next couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for those. I know that my DaVinci Resolve videos have been quite popular in the past, so I'm hoping that I can bring back that series with some more tips and tricks for you, tutorial style videos, in addition to the drone videos that have now become mainstream with the channel. Back to the processor though. And as I said, if you're a general user of a PC or a laptop and you're just a consumer, the upgrade is not worth it for you. In fact, even having the 1800X probably wasn't worth having it for you if you had that in the first place. But if, like me, you are a content creator and gamer, then it's absolutely worth it. And I have recently purchased the Oculus Rift S VR headset, and that will be coming towards the end of the month when the supply chain gets back online, and I'll be doing some videos of that. I might even be doing some live streaming with that. So having the extra processing power overhead to record in OBS whilst playing the games and having it output to my VR headset, that's where the power of having the higher processing power is really going to shine. As I say, other than that, I've just noticed regular day-to-day quality of life improvements over the last couple of days of using the new 3900X processor. So I do recommend it to you if you are in that content creator, streamer, YouTuber space, then it's definitely going to be worth it for you. For gamers, it's probably more worth your while to upgrade your graphics card and screens first, rather than upgrading the processor. You know, do benchmarks and find that out for yourself. Overall, I'm a happy consumer and I recommend this processor to you. Consider giving us a like, subscribe down below, comment to tell me what you thought of the video, and as always, thanks for watching and have a great day.